So I want to start by just sharing with you, and you've probably already heard about our blueprint for the future as far as our strategic direction for our county for the next 8 years. And so our blueprint for the future includes four priorities. We often refer to them as the 4 E's. And then there are 3 goals for each priority. And then each of the goals have objectives and key performance indicators. And so what you're looking at on the screen now are the highlighted goals are the ones that Jones Middle School has decided to focus on for this school year. And so during our time together, I'm going to provide some high-level information about each of these goals and what it looks like in practice. So for the first one, empathy, the goal that we chose was cultural competence. I won't read the objective to you, but I'm going to pause for just a second to allow you to read it. And so the rationale for us selecting this goal. So we believe that students who are cared for by teachers, who are culturally competent, and who are more likely to feel accepted and cared for in the classroom, as well as develop a positive view of themselves and their families. And our program enrollment, which I will show you a snapshot of that in just a moment, shows that 19% of our students are English learners, 14% of our students receive special education services, and 22% of our students are gifted learners. And so on this slide, you can just see a snapshot of who we are as Jones Middle School. We currently have 1,566 students. Last year, we were a school of 1085. And so with the opening of Second Year High School and the reassignment of Patrick Elementary and students from Twin Rivers Middle School, we've grown by about 500 students. So we're now 1,566. And you can see on the left side, here's the breakdown of our student ethnicity. And here are those percentages. And then what that equates to as far as numbers in our school. And then here are the numbers for GCPS. And then on the right side, this is kind of what I just described in our rationale, letting you know that 20% of our students are English language learners, 14% receive special education services, 22% are gifted, and then we have 36% of our population that are receiving free or reduced lunch. So as you can see here, we are a school that is very diverse. I often say our diversity is our greatest strength, and it is something that we are leaning into and embracing and making sure that we are equipped to meet the needs of our students well. And so when we think about some of the ways that we are doing that, you all know that we have digital learning days. We've had one so far, and we have the next one coming up November 8th. Those days have been set aside for teacher training. And so our first digital learning day, based on the students yes, that teachers are serving, they were receiving professional learning around how do you serve your English language learners well? How do you serve your students with special education services well? How do you serve your gifted students well? And so our teachers are engaged in those sessions. And then additionally, we have school-wide educational equity sessions where we're really taking a look at different cultures and what does that mean to ensure that we're providing in a classroom environment where all students feel seen and valued and heard, and they feel this sense of belonging, because this school belongs to all of us. And so that is a really important thing for us. Additionally, we take time to acknowledge and celebrate cultural holidays. As you all may know, this actually tomorrow concludes, or the 15th concludes Hispanic Heritage Month. And so our kind of culminating event tomorrow is our Taste of Jones, where we have students and families that are providing special treats from their Hispanic culture for our students to test. So we're really looking forward to that event, and that is tomorrow morning. So our next goal is in the area of equity. And this is about our multi-tiered system of supports. And you can see the objective here. I'll give you just a second to read that. And so the important thing to know about multi-tiered system of supports is this really is just a fancy way of describing kind of how we do school. So what it does is describe what does it look like in the classroom as far as our academics, but then also how are we addressing the social emotional needs of our students as well. So this is our approach to meeting the needs of the whole child. And so our rationale, we believe that using academic screeners will help teachers more quickly and accurately identify and provide support to students who are at risk of not meeting grade level expectations and identify students who may need additional accelerations. And I will read each rationale and just provide insight on the ones that I know that you'll want the most information about. And so what I will share about the academic screeners, you all may have heard your child talk about maybe a month or so ago, they took an iReady screener and it tested them in the areas of reading and in math. And then they also took a wellness screener. And that screener really does give us insight on the emotional kind of health of our students. And maybe help us to identify some behaviors that we need to be aware of and address. And so we also believe in taking a proactive approach to preventing negative behaviors by teaching and reinforcing positive behaviors. One thing that we did at the start of the year is that we were very intentional about teaching our expectations. What we realize is that as adults, we all come to work with our own beliefs and mindsets and kind of ways of doing things. The way I raise my children is different from the way Dr. Dawson may raise hers, which is different from how you may raise yours. And so what we try to do is come to an agreement as to what is the appropriate behavior that really will provide the structure our students need to be able to be their best selves in class. And so when we identify those expectations, that is what we try to explicitly teach to students to ensure that they understand what the expectations are. And then lastly, we believe that individual education plans and English language proficiency standards, and these are plans for special education students and plans for students who are English language learners. We believe that those plans help teachers provide accommodations to help students reach high levels of achievement outlined for all students. So now this is a slide that gives you a snapshot of how to find out what your child's iReady screener data reveals, okay? And so the only way that you really can access this information is through your child's e-class. And so in order to do that, here you can see this screen is what it looks like when your student logs on to their e-class. And when they log on to their e-class for this step 1, here is the word iReady that they can click. When they click iReady, step 2 tells you that it gives you the option for reading or math. And so you select, either one as a starting point. And then this third step tells you the next thing you click is My Progress. And then you will be able to view the diagnostic score of your student. And so for this one, I'm not sure if this was a math or a reading, but the score is 656, okay? So does it mean a whole lot to you when you just see a score of 656? And I think that our district is really working on being able to provide a little bit more information to parents about what these numbers represent. What I will tell you is that we are, and I think that's my next slide. So let me go to that to help give you a visual, okay? And so this slide talks to you about the tiers of that academic screener. And so the results that students have will tell you kind of the tier that they fall into. And so all students are in tier 1. Tier 1 is just what happens in the classroom. So we always talk to teachers and say to them that the first thing that we have to do is make sure that the tier 1 instruction is quality and presented at a high level, because obviously all students are taking their 4 academic classes. And then we will have some students based on their score that may fall into the tier 1 plus range. That means they were 26th to 40th percentile. Those are students who just need a little bit of extra support within their current classroom. And so those are the students that, as teachers are planning and they are differentiating instruction and thinking about pulling small groups of students to provide them with extra support, those students will fall in this category. For tier 2, these are students that are in the 11th to 25th percentile. If your child scored in the tier 2 range, you would have been notified this past Sunday through a school messenger email, letting you know that your child was going to be receiving interventions for either math and or reading, okay? So when I mentioned you could see your child score in E-class, but it wouldn't have a ton of meaning to you, but just know that if your child scored in tier 2 or tier 3, then you would have been notified of that, because those interventions are happening during our connection classes. What that means is that if you're in the tier 2, you need additional support outside of your academic class. That support that these students are receiving is strategic, and it is catered to their needs. It is not a whole class approach to learning. It is very individualized. There are certain programs that we use based on areas that show deficiency. And then in math, it's actually a computer program that we use that progresses as students progress. And then the tier 3 students, these are students that were less than the 10th percentile, and they need some daily intensive supplemental materials to help to fill some gaps that they have. What I love about this is that it gives us information that as educators, we could not easily get in the past. Before, we were solely relying on, we have multiple data points as far as different assessments that students take, but then a lot of it took time for teachers to get to know their students and to determine who needed what and to figure out how to provide those supports. But now our district has taken a very strategic approach to make sure that we are all of our students in our county are able to receive the support that they need in a timely manner. These screeners will be given 3 times a year. Our next screener will be given in January, and so students will go through this process again. They may move from tier 2 to tier 1 plus. The idea is that obviously they don't move from tier 2 to tier 3, but we are hoping that they start to move, in the left, towards the left of the table as we are giving them what they need in their classes. And then I also mentioned with our multi-tier levels of support, systems of support, that it's academic, which I just discussed, but then it's also non-academic, and that is the wellness screeners that we have. And so with the wellness screeners, there are tiered levels of support as well. So tier 1 supports, this is what everyone gets. And then we have tier 2 supports, where school counselors may get involved, a social worker, and there are other classroom management tools that we use, and we may even rely on a behavior coach for some suggestions as well. And then more intensive supports in the tier 3 area. These supports are really directed by our counselors and behavior coaches and specialists and things of that sort. So our next goal is equity, and it is about opportunity and access. And I'll give you just a moment to read the objective up top. And so here, we believe a gifted identification process will provide multiple opportunities for us to locate students who hide their talents and those who are achieving at a level below their capabilities. So I just finished talking about students who have gaps in their learning, and this goal really helps us to focus on the opposite end of the spectrum. So who are the students who have not been identified as being gifted potentially, who need enrichment and whose education needs to be enhanced? And so this is the great thing about this academic screener, is that it helps us determine all ends of the spectrum, who needs additional support to make sure that they're meeting grade level expectations, but then also who needs to be challenged and pushed. And so that is what this goal is about. Additionally, we believe that restorative practices strengthen students' connections to both staff and other students and provide effective strategies to navigate conflict. And we believe that explicitly teaching and modeling appropriate behavior while focusing on positive connections and supports will contribute to a positive school climate. What we have learned is that students are able to focus and learn from adults that they have connections with. We know that middle school is a critical time in our students' lives where there's a lot of things that's going on with them socially. And when they don't have the skills to navigate conflict and just work through all of the things that happen to a middle schooler, it really does impact the learning that happens in school and in their classroom. And so we can no longer try to put those things to the back burner and just leave it to solely parents, but instead we really do have to take a more collaborative and community support approach to supporting our students and their emotions and social emotional needs as well. So ways that we do that is through our positive behavioral intervention and support program. We refer to it as PBIS. And here, by establishing positive, safe, caring, and interactive learning environments, educators develop trusting relationships with their students, who in turn experience school as safe and responsive, where their diverse needs, strengths, and learning are supported. And so we have been a PBIS school for some time, and it is just that. It is us focusing on establishing these positive environments where we are intentional about recognizing the things that students are doing well. And so here I've listed some of the rewards that we have when it comes to PBIS that our students absolutely love. We have monthly outside time where if students have no referrals and less than 2 citations, I think they can have up to 2 citations, then they get an opportunity to go outside for 20 minutes, and we have all types of sports equipment, and it is just, they have the time of their life outside. We have a PBIS online store where students can actually earn points in the classroom, and then they can cash those points in for little trinkets and things, but then also experiences. So for example, one of the experiences is having lunch with Officer McCall, which is a really big hit around here. And so that's one of the things that they can engage in. We have awesome tickets, which these tickets are given to all staff. Primarily it's the support staff. And so it's front office staff, custodians, the cafeteria ladies, the bus drivers, where they're able to also reward students. And we do that on Fridays only. We have positive referrals that teachers write, and then administrators go in during lunchtime and they read the positive referral, have the students come up and pick out the color popsicle that they want. And so those are a few of the ways that students are able to earn points and rewards so that we can continue to encourage them to do the right things. We have JAG time in our schedule. This is 30 minutes every Wednesday in our schedule, where we have social emotional lessons, learning lessons. And so some of those topics that we discuss, I have here. So like advocating for self, setting boundaries, self-awareness. We've done bus safety here, goal setting, a lesson called You Belong Here, We do our Title IX lessons through here, device care. So this is time we're very intentional about just teaching students the skills that they need to be successful. And then we also have restorative practices. And so this is something that we use when students maybe violate a particular rule. And so one thing that we often say, and I might be getting ahead of myself just a little bit, let me see. So one thing that we often say is that we are not light on discipline, but we are very heavy on interventions. And so we really do take time to invest in our students and take a look at what is the rule violation, where are our students struggling, whether it's with getting along with peers, getting along with adults, whatever the case may be. And we have several resources now that we can use to help students to kind of get past these things and be able to be successful. And so one of those things is Navigate 360. And I think this is something that your student can actually just access in their portal. And they are age appropriate lessons. And we have staff members assigned here that also will assign Navigate 360 and based on what a student needs as far as a lesson goes. We have restorative circles and chairs, and then counseling small groups, just to name a few. So our restorative circles is really something, for example, if we have two students that have been in conflict with each other, they may have a restorative circle because our goal is to ensure that we can eliminate the conflict going forward. We find that oftentimes it's just miscommunication. And so allowing students an opportunity to share and then also to gain some skills that help them to navigate that conflict better going forward, because we know that conflict is natural. It's all about our response to it and whether or not we are escalating or de-escalating the situation. And so here are some of our behavior interventions when students do violate rules. And so one thing that I did want to point out is that there is a board theory of action for change to improve student behaviors and outcomes. And it is, I will post it with this as well, but you can find it on our district's website, but it is worth a read because it really talks about what is our theory of action as a county. And this is actually the board policy that we go by when we are kind of supporting students when it comes to discipline. And I'll just say, for example, one of the first tenets says in this policy, it says each and every student shall experience schools that create a culture of belonging where they are cared for, respected, and affirmed as an individual with innate dignity and value, which I really love because what this communicates is that our kids are still learning. Our kids make mistakes. And our goal is try to make sure that they aren't making mistakes so big that they can't recover from them, but that we also help them to be able to just navigate these challenges that they experience better each time they meet the challenge. And so our behavior management plan, for sake of words, is 5 levels. And so the first 2 levels basically are things that happen primarily in the classroom. And so here you can see these are classroom and teacher-led responses to rule violations. And here are some of the things that are often done. Level 2 is teacher-led or also can be supported by an administrator. And here are some of the things that are done at that level. And then levels 3, 4, and 5, these are typically a little bit more serious, and these are handled by administrators. And here are some of the interventions that we do here. There are times, obviously, where we have to assign a student in school suspension or out of school suspension. When we do those things, students don't just sit there idle. Those are the times that they engage with Navigate 360, or they have restorative circles, or they meet with their counselor. And so we're very intentional about how do we use that time as much as possible. I mentioned one of our goals was about opportunity and access. We want students in class. We understand that students have to be held accountable for their behaviors, but our goal is for the behavior to change and to improve. And so this is how we think about our approach. to supporting students when it comes to discipline. And then these are our levels. I encourage you again, if you want to read more about the levels and our approach as a district, then please look at the board's theory of action for change to improve student behavior and outcome. And these last two goals, actually, I will just give you a very brief overview because they have more to do with kind of the work that we do inside of the school and less about actually your students. And so talent management, effectiveness is one of our goals as well. And so basically the goal here is just to recruit the best teachers and to retain those teachers once we recruit them. So we believe that teacher leadership is an important element in spreading and strengthening school reform and improvement. What we realize is that teaching is hard. It's a very challenging job, but it's the best job. But at the same time, what we are trying to be intentional about doing is making sure that teachers have an opportunity to grow professionally, that they feel like that they're able to expand in those areas where they are skilled and passionate. And so we're trying to grow our teachers as much as possible so that we keep them here with us. We believe in retaining experienced teachers who are familiar with the needs of our school and students and know how to meet those needs. We've been very fortunate at Jones. We've had a very stable community for a long time. I am only the third principal here since 2004. And the second principal, Ms. Reisman, only left because she opened second year high school. I've had an opportunity to meet Dr. Holland, who was the first principal here at Jones, and I have an opportunity to keep in touch with him. And so, which is, I'm so fortunate to have that opportunity because understanding the premise in which the school was built and understanding kind of some of what his goals were, you can still see themes and threads of things that he started back in 2004. And so our teachers here are the best. They want to be here. They stay here. We've always had very little turnover. You have some, obviously, because people move and things change in their lives, but we've been very fortunate in that. And so we're working to continue that tradition here at Jones. And then our last goal is in the area of excellence. And so this one's about world-class communication and engagement. And so here we are really trying to improve our two-way communication with families and making sure that families feel like they are informed and they know what is going on in the school. So we've tried to improve our newsletter and we use School Messenger. And this is one format. A community meeting is one way that we're also trying to inform parents. We have a very active PTSA. We have an active school council. We try to keep our website as up to date as possible. And then making sure that we're getting feedback and input from families and staff so that we're clear about what we need to do more of and some areas that we can tweak and improve. And so there will be a survey that will go out to families in the spring. We did it for the first time last year in the spring, but it was a very short notice. And I think our community was just surveyed out. But when this survey comes around again, you will see that we will be talking about it a lot and trying to encourage as much participation as possible because we are looking at those scores and we're using them to determine what our goals are. And so that we know how we can continue to get better. And so we know that we have to do that together. And in order to really be the school that we need to be and be the best school that we need to be, we value your input as well. So I am going to end it with just a few announcements, and then I'm going to give Dr. Dawson an opportunity to share maybe a few questions that you all have. So as I mentioned, this recording and slide deck, I will put it on the website. I will include the board's theory of action for change to improve student behavior and outcomes as well. Also want to remind you that next week, Wednesday and Thursday, those are early release days. Students are released here at 1:20. And if your child needed a conference, then one of the teachers on your child's team would have reached out to you possibly by now to ask you to schedule a conference. Conferences or early release days and conferences in middle school are a little bit different in elementary school. I think elementary school, pretty much everyone gets a conference, but in middle school, we try to talk to parents throughout the year. And then during these 2 days, we really focus on students that maybe need additional support or those families that we really need to sit down and spend time talking to. But if you have not been invited to a conference and you want a conference, we will always accommodate that request. 8th grade PSAT is Tuesday, October 25th. If you are an 8th grade parent, then you received a school messenger about this a night or two ago. Our next digital learning day is Tuesday, November 8th. So keep that in mind. And then we have fall picture makeups on November 9th.